What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be talking about qualifying for the NCAA wrestling tournament and how some college wrestling coaches are fixing matches to get their guys qualified for the big dance. My name is Zach, and this is Still. Before we get into this video though, please scroll down, just click subscribe, please drop a thumbs up, leave a comment, let us know your thoughts and opinions. Let's get into the video. College wrestling, like most sports, there is a certain process or procedure to qualify for the NCAA wrestling tournament. College basketball, you have to win your conference tournament. If you do that, you automatically qualify. If you don't do that, you have to be selected by a committee for an at-large bid. College baseball, they have a regional tournament and then a super regional tournament. Those final 8 teams compete in Omaha, Nebraska for the College World Series. College football boils down to the final 4 playoff teams, which are selected by a 13-member committee. Last but not least, college wrestling. Now, college wrestling is a little bit different than the previous examples because it's more individual focused. Even though there are team trophies to be won, the focus is mainly on the individual wrestlers, at least for this video. The process to qualify for the NCAA wrestling tournament is more of a formulaic process. So there is 3 different criteria that we're going to be looking at, and I'll explain those later on in this video. But how do you qualify for the NCAA wrestling tournament? Each wrestler competing for a spot at the big dance will compete in their conference tournament first, of which there are 7 of those. The winner of each weight class will receive an automatic bid to the national championship, as will each wrestler who placed at an allocated spot at their conference tournament. I will explain what allocated spot is here in a second. If you did not win your conference tournament, nor did you place high enough for an allocated spot, you may still win an at-large bid. Think of that as like a wild card. How are these allocated spots determined? Each wrestler can earn an allocated spot at their conference tournament by achieving 2 of the 3 of the following criteria: a 700% win percentage, top 30 in the RPI, I'll explain that in a bit, and top 30 in the coaches rankings. Any 2 of the 3 earns your conference an allocated spot at your conference tournament. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Now, what is an allocated spot? An allocated spot at your conference tournament basically means if everything goes according to the plan, you'll be going to the NCAA wrestling tournament. However, crazy upsets happen. Not everything always goes according to the plan, and in that case, you'll have to win an at-large bid. Each bracket is comprised of 29 qualifiers plus the 4 at-large bids. Now, you don't necessarily want to leave your hands in the fate of an at-large bid because you never know what could happen. It's much safer to qualify via an allocated spot or an automatic qualifier. Now, let's break down the criteria needed for an allocated spot. The first one is winning percentage. That's Division I wins divided by Division I matches. You need a minimum of a 700% win percentage with a minimum of 8 Division I matches for it to count. The second criteria is top 30 RPI. That's rating percentage index. You're going to want to remember that. RPI is composed of your own win percentage, 25%, opponent's win percentage, 50%, and opponent's win percentage for the last 25%. You also need a minimum of 15 Division I matches at your designated weight class to earn this criteria. Forfeits and medical forfeits are excluded from the 15-match count. Injury faults do count towards a 15-match minimum since the match had started. You're going to want to remember that as well. The last one is top 30 in coaches ranking. You need just a minimum of 5 Division I matches at your designated weight class, competing at least once within 30 days of the last coach's ranking period. So you might be wondering, how is there corruption in college wrestling? Let's rewind a little bit. 2020 was a weird year for a lot of people, but what if I told you the wrestling world was shaken up before the COVID-19 pandemic? On February 22nd, 2020, in Gilbert, Iowa, Iowa State University hosted the infamous Last Chance Open. In what was initially an effort to help some athletes obtain the criteria needed for an allocation for their conference tournament, a much bigger problem occurred. Kerry Colat tweeted out a link to themat.com, a popular wrestling forum within the community, to a thread pointing out the 184-pound bracket where Iowa State's Marcus Coleman wrestled a grand total of 5 seconds in 4 matches on his way to a Last Chance Open tournament title. Why, you might ask? Because Marcus Coleman started off the 2019 in 2020 season at 174 pounds before moving up to 184 pounds mid-season. Marcus only had 10 matches at 184 pounds and needed 15 matches to meet the minimum match requirement for the RPI criteria needed to earn an allocated spot. Marcus's win percentage wasn't going to be enough, so he needed to be ranked top 30 in the coaches ranking, which he was, and only needed 15 matches for RPI to earn his second criteria needed for an allocated spot. With the Last Chance Open tournament title and a final match versus NDSU, Marcus reached his 15-match minimum and successfully earned himself an allocated spot for the Big 12 tournament. Marcus ended up placing 5th at the Big 12 tournament, which, you guessed it, had 5 allocations at 184 pounds. The NCAA tournament never happened that year due to COVID-19, but nevertheless, the mission was accomplished. This is Last Chance Open tournament champion. Right?
That is awesome.
Let's hear from an interview that we did with Kevin Dresser on how this all happened.
It was in late February, and if you know anything about, we have a big room. We got 40 guys in the roster, so you got 10 guys that are starting, and basically in January and February, I don't think there was one open tournament. So I'm like, man, we got to keep these guys motivated and excited. We got to do a tournament. Being at Virginia Tech, there was a lot of opportunities for our athletes in January and February, but nothing here. That's how I started the Last Chance Open. And so, what I ended up finding out is that other coaches were bringing their athletes in and basically working the system. I'm not throwing them under the bus. They were smart in working the system, and I mean weighing in guys, not wrestling, weighing in guys, wrestling one match, pulling them out. And the reason they were doing it, obviously, was to get guys in the NCAA tournament. So after the first year of the Last Chance Open, I got put on a committee at the NWCA convention with the NCAA. And so I just shared my results. I said, hey, we had 3 schools last year that came in and did this. I said, so I think we need to change the system. All right, nothing. And this is the NCAA, nothing.
Right.
All right. Then the next year, nothing. So last year I said, well, you know what? If we're gonna do all this work and you're gonna put me on a committee and we got people gaming the system, then you know what? I'm gonna game the system.
Right. Now, the Iowa State Cyclones aren't the only ones guilty of finding loopholes within the system allowed by the NCAA. Let's take a look at Real Woods from the 2020-21 season. Real did not wrestle a single match until the Pac-12 championships. The Pac-12 only had one automatic qualifier, so that basically meant Real had to win the conference tournament. Real ended up getting pinned in the conference tournament, therefore not automatically qualifying for the NCAA wrestling tournament. Now, in most cases, 9 times out of 10, this would mean your season is done for. That is until Stanford and company use similar loopholes as Dresser and the Cyclones to help Real get an opportunity of receiving an at-large bid. Stanford arranged for some extra matches with CSU Bakersfield for Real to wrestle Jose Landon 2 times, in which Real won both via fall and technical fall. CSU Bakersfield then said, hey, we scratch your back, it's time for you to scratch ours.
You scratch our backs, we'll scratch yours.
Well, Jules, the funny thing about my back is that it's located on my...
They sent their own Chance Rich out to wrestle Stanford's Suhas Chundi, in which Chance Rich won both via technical fall. That was enough for Chance Rich to earn his second criteria needed for an at-large bid. Real Woods and Chance Rich both earned at-large bids and a trip to the NCAAs. You could make this argument that this is better than injured defaulting to your own teammate, but there's something to be said about asking your athlete to go out there and take an L against another team. Now, I don't necessarily think that these coaching staffs said, hey, we need you to go out there and lose on purpose. However, the guys that they sent had a combined record of 0-11. It's safe to say both schools knew the predicted outcome of those matches. This seemed relatively more accepted at the time considering the circumstances that Stanford was under. You want more examples? Let's use one from this season. In 2022, Malik Hines and Connor McGonigal of Lehigh needed one more match to reach the 15-match requirement for their RPI criteria. The result of that match didn't matter, so Arizona State's Michael McGee took an injury default over Malik Hines, as did Mikey Ramos of Arizona State over Connor McGonigal. Both matches, 1 second long. Let's use another example from this season. Kent State's Jake Ferry and SIUE's Saul Irving both needed one more win to earn their win percentages above 700%. In actuality, Irving needed more than a 700% win percentage because of the loaded field that is 141 pounds this year. So this match was only a bad look for SIUE because it would have never qualified Irving for an allocation in the first place. Talk about bad PR for no reason. because 141 pounds had more than 29 guys, which is the maximum for allocated spots at each weight. Therefore, they raised the threshold to 710%, 720%, 730%. You get the picture? They raise it until it's below 29 allocated spots, went all the way up to 0.74 this year. Therefore, that match should have never even happened in the first place. Do your homework next time. So, you might have guessed it. There's a lot of fallout the first time that Dresser did it. Relatively no fallout when Stanford and CSU Bakersfield did it. But this year, people were not having it. After much uproar from the community, the NCAA had to respond. The NCAA ended up issuing a statement in response to what was going on. This is their statement. The NCAA Division I Wrestling Committee did determine it will not consider for championship selections, including conference pre-allocations, any results from extra matches that ended with injury defaults where the wrestlers did not wrestle. This meant that more than just SIUE took a bad PR look for no reason. Just like after Dresser exposed the loophole that was the Last Chance Open and wrestling your own teammates, the NCAA decided to put an end to this as much as possible. After Last Chance Open, the NCAA decided that wrestling your own teammate would not count in any way, shape, or form towards earning an allocated spot. After this season's 1 second injury defaults, the NCAA decided that those matches would not count because they did not actually wrestle in any match. This begs the question, at what point is a match considered an actual match? If 1 second's not considered, is 30 seconds? Is 1 minute? What about 1 period? What about 2 periods? At what point in the match did they actually wrestle? The correct method seems to be how Stanford and CSU Bakersfield did it, where you throw out your wrestler against an opponent's backup for a guaranteed victory. Now, there is 2 ways to look at all this. All these coaches are gaming the system for the benefit of their own athletes and taking away an opportunity from a more deserving athlete, or this is the genius of these coaching staffs who actually took the time to do the homework to find said loopholes within the system to the benefit of their own athlete. You can't tell me that in college basketball, if a team needed 1 more win and the NCAA said you could go scrimmage another school's B team, and if you win, you go to the NCAA tournament, that they all wouldn't do that. So, whose side do you blame? The NCAA for allowing this to happen within the rules, or the coaches for gaming the system? Now, did Dresser purposefully get his name dragged through the mud by a bunch of haters and losers to show the NCAA and the NWCA these loopholes for the betterment of the sport for the future? Maybe.